Look, just a bit of preamble. I know that there's an app there that you can choose and track stocks during the course of the next week, and this seems to have gone forward. Okay, so in the spirit of diversifying your portfolio when you do the selections, I think this is worth definitely having a good look at. I quote this as a unique country play. We're all about South Korea. A lot of people haven't heard about South Korea. It's completely new to them. Hopefully I can give you a quick tour of that over the course of the next few minutes and convince you that we're onto something very unusual. That's us drilling on site. We're very active in the field, using local Korean drill contractors supervised by an Australian drill company. Why South Korea? Well, basically, we posit that there are multiple hotspots globally at present, some of which have obviously well known to you all. So, places like Western Australia and so on, very well known in this space. However, what is perhaps less well known is some of the deposits that are being found in Far Eastern Russia and North Asia. Perhaps some of you have heard of the epithermal projects in Japan. We're looking in South Korea because of the macro-geological context and the fact that we believe that there's been very, very little exploration in this part of the world. So very few exploration dollars have gone into North Asia and in particular South Korea. So we're going to fix that problem. It's a strategy of focusing on precious metals only. So we're all about the discovery of high-grade gold and silver deposits. And South Korea does actually have form. It's just that it's a little bit off the radar screen and it's been largely forgotten. That photograph is a photograph of a gold mine found by the Ivanhoe Group back in the 1990s. The last time Korea was well explored was with Robert Friedland's what was then called Indochina goldfields. And they made a number of discoveries there before they found their things in Mongolia. So for good reason, they were drawn out of the country prematurely. A big part of our story is that we've reassembled the old Ivanhoe team that were involved there back in the 1990s and in a sense blowing the dust off the reports that were done back then and reigniting or reactivating exploration in the country with the very much Ivanhoe philosophy, boots on the ground, old school kind of geology, focus on drilling. Oops. And even with a very small team and a modest budget, we're already starting to sort of find some amazing things. To put it into context, when our project generation teams are active in the field, they're finding new mineral systems outcropping on surface every 5 to 6 weeks of field activity. We have more than 100 targets in country. We talk about half a dozen of them, or 4 of them in the slide deck, but really the main thing to take away in your mind is that there is a much bigger play here, a country-wide play, where very, very little work has been done, and every time we go out, we find something new. Typically high-grade gold epithermal, low sulfidation epithermal, and in most cases, projects that have never been drilled. We've just recently announced the addition of 2 new people coming onto the board, hence the recent appointment of Doug Kerwin. Some of you would probably know Doug. He's made multiple world-class discoveries in his career and goes back to South Korea in the very early days, including with the Ivanhoe Group. Terry Grammer is part of the Metal Tiger Group, and he will be joining us once the shareholders have voted on the actual financing we have in place at the moment. But this is going to be quite transformative for the company. Both Doug and Terry, Terry's well known obviously in the West Australian context, but both Doug and Terry are what I call black belt geologists. Guys that have made multiple discoveries in their career and or have taken small cap companies into the ASX 200. And not just once, multiple times. So these guys have got fantastic track record. Another board member that's actually here with me over the next few days is Peter Bamford, the guy in the middle centre. Do come to our booth and have a chat to Peter. He's an engineer by background and has some unique insights into what we're looking at in Korea. Quick overview of the capital structure. We're still quite tight, about 88 million shares on issue, although we are doing a major financing right now. So you'll see in the box on the bottom left-hand side, that we announced recently a $10 million institutional investment, most of which has been done by Metal Tiger, or about a third, but also well supported by our major shareholders. Now, that's a very big raising for a company of our market capitalisation. You're probably wondering, how on earth have we managed to do that? Well, what is it that's behind this story that means that we can raise $10 million for a $13 million market cap company? The reason is we've taken these technical experts out to site. We've given them the tour of South Korea. We've shown them exactly what we're facing here. And they've been able to see that with a relatively modest budget and team, we've achieved quite a lot. But imagine what we could do if we were well funded. And that's the essence of what this financing is all about. What it will do is it will mean that our on-the-ground field teams will go from 1 or 2 to 4, and our drill meterage rate will go from about 3,000 to 4,000 metres a year to about 15,000 metres a year. In other words, it enables us to take it to another level. Another important thing to highlight there is you can see that 4 of our major shareholders have about 35% of the company. They too supported this raising. So with Metal Tiger coming onto the register at about the same level, we'll have 5 major shareholders having about half the company, and that puts us as a small company in a very, very strong position going forward with financings. You can see, though, that we've basically financed the company for the next several years, so we're well positioned to take this opportunity forward. A few words on Korea, for those of you who aren't familiar with it. Very, very well developed country. It's essentially like a Japan in terms of development. You can basically manufacture anything you wish there. It's got a very, very transparent regulatory system. It's got a mining code. Unbelievable access infrastructure, and it's a brilliant place to work. Fiscal regime, I would say, is perhaps globally unique, in as much as that there is no royalties, and perhaps many of you are thinking, how on earth can there be no royalties? There's always a royalty. And I would say that it's partly because the fact that the mining industry is just so small there, and it's the Samsungs, the LGs, the Hyundais of their industries that generate the lion's share of their tax revenue. So really the mining industry is not even a rounding error in their national accounts. And so it's just not it's just not part of their calculus in terms of trying to raise money. More important to Koreans is actually economic activity in the regional areas. So a big part of what they like to see is companies like us out in the regions doing the drilling, buying our gear from the local guys, etc., etc. That's a big part of what we bring to the country. That's a list of our projects and what they call graticles. So this is all very transparent system. You can go online, Google, you can basically log in and find out who owns what in the country. So very, very good system of tenure, very, very easy to maintain, cheap to basically maintain your, it's a use it or lose it type system. So you do have to be active there to keep your tenure in good standing, but the amount of activity required is quite modest. That's our team in the country. I've put this in the presentation, perhaps a little bit unusual, but as when Jerry was giving you my CV at the beginning, a lot of my career I've spent working offshore in different countries, whether it's South America or through Asia. And in my experience, it's very easy to stuff things up in foreign countries. You really have to get this stuff right. A big part of it is your Korean team. And you can see there that we've got basically a 2-for-1 ratio of Koreans to expatriates. That means that when we're out on the ground, we've got a very Korean face. Very much about young Korean people working out in the field and doing the work that we're doing. We've got some of the best expatriate geologists in the business. So it's a fantastic opportunity for these young Koreans to learn from some of these guys. So Craig Panther, for example, and Cyril Orsic, they're both ex-Ivanhoe geologists who have worked a long time in this business and are experts in epithermal geology. So we think we've got a fantastic team. This doesn't happen overnight, by the way. The development of this Korean team has taken me some years to put together, but we're very proud of it, and it's been executing our programs very well over the last year or so. We have a very boots-on-the-ground culture. I sort of talked a bit before about the Ivanhoe influence and how we do things. The picture on the left is a hand-drawn map done by Craig Panther of the Wallyu project, which goes to some detail. So certainly when we're designing our drill programs, we're investigating new areas, you need to have geologists who are first class. In many respects, a lot of what we're looking at in Korea are projects that have never been looked at by Western geologists before. So these guys are typically the first people to really have a good look at these areas. So you need to have guys who know what they're doing. I've got a series of projects, but I'm not going to spend too much time on them. If you would like to do a deeper dive on the project level detail, please come to our booth G, just opposite the bar. So we're strategically located, we can grab a beer and come and have a chat. But basically, the 4 projects I've put into the presentation are really there to highlight different contexts in which we've been able to come up with things. So Woldu South, for example, that was an old silver germanium mine. So we went into the area because of the historical mining. But on the other side of the mountain, we started to find some really interesting rocks, such as those up there. And so the geologists knew straight away that they were onto a different epithermal system, different to what was mined in the past. And sure enough, as we went up the mountain, we started finding higher and higher grade of gold and silver in veins. The essential situation here is that in cartoon form, we've found multiple veins in this mountain, which has been mined at the very top of the mountain at kind of artisanal scale, but there's been no drilling of this system of any scale to speak of. So what we think we have here is we're at the top of a significant epithermal system that requires a lot of drilling. Biopsimpo is completely different. This is one that we generated principally from 1 to 50,000 geology maps, looking at geology first principles, seeing that we're on the edge of a Cretaceous basin. And what we found when we went out in the field was quite astounding. So we've got here at least 5 different vein systems, lots of fantastic surface indicators that there's been boiling in the system with the silica replacing ablated carbonate. It's structurally located perfectly on the edge of a basin. It ticks just about every technical box you can imagine. And we've just started drilling there. So in fact, we're drilling there as we speak. So this is quite exciting from the point of view of a technical group. It's just very greenfields though, early days, but a fantastic target. And you can see there from the scale that we've traced this system for nearly 4 kilometres in terms of strike extent. And we're starting to hit some very interesting rocks, as you can see from the drill core at the bottom there. Dokon was an example of an old silver mine, and that brought us into the district. But typically what we find in Korea is that things have been mined at very, very small scale. By small scale, I mean tens of metres in terms of drives, a bit like a cottage industry. And we'll go out to that regional area and have a closer look at the broader district. And typically what we find is new vein systems that have never been assessed before. And Dokon is an example of that, where we found a whole new vein system off to the eastern side. Nangju is one that the Ivanhoe group identified. And it was one of those reports that we blew the dust off, and it said at the end, this area is looking fantastic, we need to go back there. Of course, they went to Mongolia and, never did go back there, but we have. And when we went back there, we found 5 different vein systems going up to 30 grams per tonne on surface. Sure, these are rock chips, it is early days, it's not a mine, but I tell you what, it is a very good start in terms of walk-up drill target. Very, very exciting. And I said to you at the beginning of the presentation, this is a unique country plan. A big part of what we're talking about here is this project generation work. And really this is about looking at the country as a whole, and we've got a number of key technical guides that we're using to target our first phase, if you will, and it's been extremely successful. Basically, every time we go out, we find new systems. So we're generating drill targets every 6 weeks or so. We are drilling, so we're very, very active. I said we've just got ourselves funded, subject to shareholder approval. We'll be extremely well funded with more than $12 million. We're going to have a very intense drill program over the next 12 to 18 months. And so a lot of these conceptual targets will be tested. And it's been done before. So this is some historical photographs, just to give you a bit of the historic context. Ivanhoe went in there, they have found things, bonanza grades, they even started a mine there before they left. And so they've really shown how runs can be put on the board. So in a summary, tight capital structure, well-funded, fantastic people, unique jurisdiction, and I think a very special story. But thanks very much.